Welcome to our Meet the Experts Film Production Design panel. We're here with Gae Buckley from I'm Your Woman, Jim Bissell from The Midnight Sky, Jeremy Woodward from Sound of Metal, and Shane Valentino from The Trial of the Chicago 7. Thank you all for being here. When you guys start a project, do you start by hand drawing your designs or do you do it digitally? Let's go to Jeremy.
I find a lot of the initial impulses come out much quicker with a pencil. But then I think as you want to start getting really specific about like layers and references and sort of really start to flesh it out, it helps to just sort of, you can just like sort of photo bash something together, like a big sort of collage of images, even if you just sort of cut out and start to arrange it in the sense that it suggests a setting. I find more and more I'm sort of transitioning towards that sort of presentation because it's just, it's a little more full, but again, like pencil, like just does come to, it does express things a little more quick for me.
I mean, I'll speak. I mean, I'm strictly digital these days. I've hardly used a pencil. I mean, I've just kind of I've moved to the iPad specifically. I work with Photoshop. I work all those kinds of methodologies, and I can't imagine going back. So that's basically how I start working. But very much like Jeremy, I start in the same way, like doing kind of like photo collages, and then from that it sparks the idea, and then I start doing sketches on the iPad, and then it moves into a Photoshop, finished Photoshop image.
Okay, why don't you go?
I still like using a pencil in the beginning. It's for me. It's I guess from my training and architecture, it's kind of that's just how I think. It's part of my process. But I rarely do any presentations anymore. That I draw, those are usually either done in Photoshop or digitally.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to me in the very beginning is to find out on a visceral level what is the imagery that we want to create, and so sometimes it's painting, sometimes it's collage work or whatever it is. But ultimately, I think when it comes to design, to me, a really good set is designed with latent images in it. So you basically give a geographical excuse for a really great image. And you've got to get that image in your head first before you start designing. And when I do the design work, I go straight to the 3D work. I do everything in 3D, but it's finding that image is sort of a groping process that encompasses just about every tool I come up with.
So do you guys have a favorite instance of that from any project in your career? Shane, let's go to you.
I think other than that experience, I think it was when I did Straight Outta Compton, when we did the riot scenes. I think that was a great challenge to actually transform Topanga into what would be the area of Crenshaw. So that was a transformative experience. I mean, transformative experience and also transformative. So that I would say would be one that really stood out.
Are we coming to me?
Oh, you could. Anyone, I think, is
okay. It's funny. Back in the early '80s, I did a movie with Ridley Scott called "Someone to Watch Over Me," and we wanted a real stylish bar, Manhattan bar, and we used the Queen Mary down in Long Beach, and it was really a lot of fun to transform that. And we also used the first class swimming pool as an art gallery, which was a really interesting transformation.
Nice.
Hey, Jeremy, here.
I don't know that anything is really coming to mind. I mean, immediately there was a movie I did in New Orleans a few years ago that it was supposed to be sort of an old kind of jazz club, and the director really couldn't land on anything that had the right space. So we ended up shooting it in this Italian restaurant that looked nothing like what it was supposed to look like. So that ended up being, at the end I kept thinking, like, why aren't we just building this on stage? We clad all the walls and, brick and wallpaper, and I don't know, it was fun to change it around.
I don't know if I have a great answer for this question.
You haven't done it yet?
I haven't done, not the one that leaps to mind yet. I think I need to start spending more money. Then I can
I'm sure it will happen. Come on.
You need a wallpaper
opportunity is going to be in front of it,
Well, so what's the biggest lesson you've learned as a production designer? Jim, let's go to you.
The biggest lesson? I don't know. Wow. I guess it's probably to get a vision as quickly as possible, because the execution does take time to really get it right, and it's really trying to understand what the movie is all about as quickly as you possibly can, and just sort of ingest it and make it part of your being. Because ultimately, there's a couple of components to movie making. One is performance, and the other is basically context. And we do context. Yeah. And we do the context that the characters interact with to show why they're doing the shit that they're doing. Sorry. But it's like we got to really think through that, and we have to really understand what it's all about. Because then we want to layer in so much about information about the characters, their psychological state, their what they're thinking about, their lives, their work, whatever it is. They interact with the environments we create, and they become a story. So it's important to really understand that story as quickly as you possibly can on a very, very intimate level.
I agree with that. I mean, I would say that you're asking like what we've learned. I think politics plays a huge part in what we do all the time. And, I think that's just the nature of having a lot of people together working and wanting their ideas or their will to be a part of that particular project. I wasn't prepared for that so significantly in my career. But, because it sometimes works in opposite to your creative process. So I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned, incorporating that into my work environment.
I would say, aside from the design element of what we do, for me, it's finding the right people for the job.
Sure.
And the right blend of people who will sort of cover all the bases creatively, what we need. And that's kind of like putting together a symphony in a way. You really have to do it. And when you don't have the right team, you really feel it. It's very different.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gae. That's so true.
Yeah, I would throw in, like, it took me a minute to appreciate how much of the job is really just communicating, and like communications, like designing movies, like so much. It's just about talking about the movie and just externalizing everything. And I know, like, it's kind of obvious that in terms of design and presentation and articulating the design in images is one thing we all do, and that's the foundation of what we do. But the more it goes on, the more it's really about being able to just articulate a vision and make sure you're implanting that in the mind of everybody you're working with, and making sure that they're understanding where you're at, and you can bring them into it. That's in particular, your crew and your staff. Mm-hmm. Making sure that you can get everybody just dialed into where you're going and bring them in.
And finally, when you guys do research and you dive into these new worlds, you often learn about so many subjects you never knew about before. So what's your favorite thing that you've learned, or something that you now have an interest in that you never thought you would? Gae, let's start with you.
Well, the research is, for me, it's the best part. I mean, it's so much fun. I would have to say, I worked on a Western years ago that took place in Montana Territory in 1880. And I don't know, just researching those people who actually lived there, those pioneers who lived out on the frontier, and how simple their lives were, and like what were the first things they got as ornamentation, and how long did it take before a church appeared in their town. And a lot of these things were almost standardized. Where did they all get their bars for their saloons? They all came from like one manufacturer in St. Louis. Who knew? It was just really interesting to me, and I think that stuck with me for a long time.
Are y'all still thinking?
I could say. I mean, I did a film, Beginners, and I did one of the ideas behind the film was using Los Angeles as a character, and I got to learn a lot about the specific geography of Los Angeles, specifically the Biltmore Hotel and Pershing Square. And Pershing Square during, I don't know, like the 1920s, 30s was a big, big sort of pickup joint or pickup area for people that, were on the fringe. And so I had no context, and so, it was an interesting kind of I don't know, revelation for me about just how, ideas about certain topography changes over time, and then like its use changes over time. And it's just, I enjoy that kind of discovery. And, and every time I now drive by Pershing Square, I have that kind of, it pops into my head. Like, I like that part of our job a lot.
That's when, it really sticks with you. Like it always comes back when.
What's that?
That's when like something sticks with you. Like it always.
Totally, 100%. It's like but I love that. I mean, I love those moments.
I can. It was a movie I worked on some time ago, but I worked on the movie Gold that had Matthew McConaughey in it, and I know more about drilling geologic core samples in gold mining exploration than I ever thought I would need to know. Machinery, techniques, like just the whole kit. We just ate the whole sandwich. It was great.
One day you'll be really good at that trivia category. So.
I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna be like, how do you know that?
I think for me, it's. I mean, every show, like Gae said, it's my favorite part. It's you immerse yourself in all sorts of really interesting details and see what comes out of the brew. But back when I was doing ET, we were researching exactly how to isolate the creature and what the procedures and the protocols would be, and it was about different levels of cleanliness. And we made the final assumption that we were trying to protect the ET from the environment. We were not trying to protect the environment from ET. So we had these various stages of clean room procedures, and in researching materials, I found that there was this PVC plastic that that was pretty impervious to microparticles coming through, and that how do we isolate the house? Well, it was a combination of being able to discover this really beautiful material, which was sort of a matte finish and really strong, and then what it would how it would transform the house. I mean, it actually worked scientifically. You could actually isolate the house and isolate it by creating a positive pressure flow underneath it. But it looked like this giant surreal Christo art installation. And it was just beautiful. And I thought, oh, this is going to be fantastic. But then, the moment of reality came when I'm sitting out there with a highboy and a crane and a 90 by 120 foot piece of plastic, and we're trying to figure out how to get it over the house. But we did, and I thought it was a pretty stunning image.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys all so much for your time today. It was great speaking with you, and congratulations on all of your projects.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.